Okay, shut the fuck.
Come on. We gotta do it. Fuck, you guys usually can save that. All right, whatever. We got an FRS. We got a turbo kit. So it has been on before. It's not like a first time install. I just had an oil leak. I'm not sure. I didn't know where it was coming from. So I took everything off and figured out that the oil leak was from the oil pan, which isn't that bad, honestly. So I'm gonna put the turbo kit back on. You know, oil's leaking, but I got some spare oil in the car, and we're gonna send it to H2O. We got the header that's gonna go on first. Then once that's on, I can put the turbo on to the header, bolt that up. Then after that, I can just do the rest of the exhaust piping. After that, intercool piping, then throw the radiator support back on and the bumper back on. So let's do this. Jumpsuit on. I have the Speed by Design turbo kit, and there's a few things that you need to do or get before you actually want to install this. Like, I already installed it, so it's not going to be a full-on install video, but I mean, I can at least tell you the important things. One of them being the lines under here, the evap lines under the manifold on the right side, need to be clamped, because from the pressure, those will blow off. Now, you can get to them by taking off the AC, and that can be done with just, I believe, 2 bolts. And once you take that off, you can get in there, which is like almost nearly impossible. People do it. I didn't do it. I took the entire manifold off. I do not recommend taking the entire manifold off. That was a pain. Another thing is the PCV valve. The stock FRS PCV valve isn't meant to handle boost, but I believe 2015 and up WRXs have the same engine and a PCV valve that's meant for boost. So you can just go to a Subaru dealership, find the part, ask for, PCV valve or whatever it is, look it up, and you can use that, and it's just a direct replacement. So it is where this hose connects to, right there on the left side of the manifold, and that actually, the hose connects right to the top over here on top of the manifold, so you can just follow that and find it. It just, you can somehow get a thread down there, screw it out, put the new one back in. So another thing you may need is catch cans. They're not entirely necessary, but they're definitely a really good idea, because there is a lot of oil that blows by into the engine from the turbo, from the pressure. So I have a dual catch can set up, one for the PCV and one for the crankcase. The PCV valve, you can just take that hose out, the one that it originally connects to, connect it to your catch can, whatever catch can you decide, and then the other side will go back into there. And the other side under the AC unit, which you may or may not have to take off the AC to do this, there's a hose down there. You could just, and that connects to the intake, where you could take that off, route it to your catch can, and then back to the intake. Another thing that you probably want to get is a crash bar. Now, the reason you get the crash bar is because the stock one doesn't clear the intercooler. So basically, you can cut your stock crash bar. It is a pain, but that's pretty much the only thing that you need to modify to put this kit on. It's pretty much bolt-on. I would recommend just going with the crash bar. It looks cool. You can put stickers on it like I did, and you can just fit a lot more stuff in there. So I'll go over a few things that I have done right now that I did for the turbo kit, but there's just still in the car waiting. So one of them being the oil pan. The turbo needs oil, and the oil needs to go somewhere. So you need an oil pan that has the adapter fitting. You can buy it from Speed by Design, or from, I think, Ready makes it too. And it's basically take the old one out, put the new one on, beat a silicone. Pretty simple, right? Now, in order to get that old one out, you're probably gonna have to destroy your oil pan, because it is extremely hard to get out. When pulling my stock oil pan out, it was a pain. Basically, there's no actual area to pry it off, so you kind of have to get in there with screwdrivers and bend down and bend the entire oil pan. And if you know that, it basically makes the oil pan not usable anymore. So the reason the issue I have is my current oil pan's leaking. I will fix it eventually. You can get it out without breaking it or bending it. but it's probably gonna be really hard, so I need more time for that. So since I already installed it, I'm gonna go over the things that need to be done, but I already have done here. And one of those is the clutch. Now, the stock clutch can't handle the power from the turbo. Maybe it can for a month, but it's not gonna last long, especially if you drive it hard. So you definitely need a clutch rated for the horsepower. Okay. So if you're curious what I have the ACT Stage 2 clutch. I think it was a long time ago, but I mean, it's great. It's really hard to drive, and I have the stock flywheel, and it's still really hard to drive, so it's a good thing I didn't go with the lighter one. So that's definitely something you need to do. So moving on to what I have installed in the car. This is a Mishimoto oil cooler. It's on the ground right now, obviously. You can get away with not having this, but it's a good idea. Then another thing I have actually for cooling is the Mishimoto fan shroud and the Mishimoto radiator. You don't need these. I just want to be extra safe and keep temps really low, but you actually don't need those. And then for the intercooler, this is the second thing that you actually need to modify the car for that's not bolt-on. So you need to drill 2 holes and bolt this intercooler on from the bottom. So staying on the topic of the intercooler, the blow-off valve in the newer generation Speed by Design kits connects right to the intercooler. And if you're wondering where you can connect the blow-off valve hose to, I connected it to the brake booster. The shorter the distance, the better, apparently. So, I mean, this doesn't seem too far, but this wire right there comes all the way to the brake booster wire, or hose, I should say. And I just connected with a T-fitting that was supplied right there and clamped everything down. Moving on to the oil. You have the turbo return. So like I said, you need the oil pan, and this is why, because you connect a hose to the bottom of it. And this comes right up into the turbo. The way it gets its oil is this line right here, which attaches to your oil pressure sensor right there. And they supply you with a T-fitting as well that you just screw into the block. Then you screw the original pressure sensor on top of that, and then the oil feed onto the bottom. Then moving on to the water cooling of the turbo. The throttle body has a closed loop for colder temperatures. It keeps the throttle body warmer. So you can take out the loop and just completely get rid of it. You don't need it anymore. Get 2 hoses, attach them to where the loop was in the back of there, which you probably can't see. Clamp them down, and then these will be into your turbo. And it actually doesn't matter which orientation they're in. It's a loop, so the turbo can get water either way, so you don't have to worry about if this one goes in the back fitting or the front fitting. So another thing I did is the manifold absolute pressure sensor, map sensor, and you need one that can actually read the boost for the car. This one's by Omni, 3-bar. It came with the kit, and that's as simple as just unplugging that, unscrewing that one thing, putting the new sensor in, plugging it back in, screw it back in. So this is the header. It's reversed. So instead of going straight back, it actually comes up into the engine bay, and that's where the turbo mounts. Right in the middle of the engine bay, there's plenty of room. Now, what people usually don't know is you need new header bolts. So if you use your stock ones, for some reason, it could be bad. I don't know why. I don't know what's bad. Just go to the dealership, get new bolts. They're not that expensive, and use those. So this bolts right to the block where the original header is, and the turbo goes right up here. Now there's 3 studs on purpose. It's not, I didn't lose one or anything, because you can't get to this. You need to go from the bottom, so you need to put a bolt through it, and they supply you with the bolt. This is the gasket that you need in there. All right, so I'm gonna install the header. It's just simple as taking the old one out and putting this one in and making sure it goes up straight, and I'll get back to you when it's done. As you can see, the header actually does come right to the front, and that being said, the turbo sits right on top. So once the turbo's on, there are three nuts that you have to put on. You need the lock washers under there, or else they'll fall out. And one bolt on the back side, which I explained earlier. You just gotta tighten everything down. You need a stubby wrench in order to get some of those bolts, because a regular wrench won't fit these. And this is a little far-fetched, and I actually shaved this down to be smaller. This is a 13, that's the size of the nuts. And in order for this to actually fit in there, I had to shave it down. Now that the turbo's on, you gotta put the downpipe on. And unfortunately, there's a bolt on the bottom, which you can't see, that's extremely hard to get on. Now, the trick to getting that on is to not put on any other bolts yet. Focus on the bottom first, keep it out as much as possible, put the bolt on, and then slowly move it in while twisting the bolt. It's very hard to understand. You'd have to be down there to actually see what I'm talking about. So this is the sensor pipe. It goes from the down pipe to the over pipe. The over pipe is stock over pipe. I mean, mine's upgraded, but it's in the stock car. And the sensor is just saying, unscrew them, screw them in here, make them nice and tight. And this is a standard exhaust with gaskets on each side, bolted together, and that's really it. So got the sensor pipe in, plug the two sensors in. Now I have to connect these hoses to the two fittings. And like I said, it doesn't matter where they go. And the oil feed line right there. And to connect the oil feed line, you need a little bit of thread sealant liquid. Don't use tape dope or plumber's tape or whatever you want to call it. Use this, just a little bit, goes a long way. So after installing these lines, coolant lines right there, I just put this oil line on as well. And I installed this little turbo bracket over here. And then the next thing is the turbo blanket. So you just put it on top of the turbo. These go on one side, they connect to the other side, holds it in place. Really simple. Alright, so now we just have the intercooler piping. As you can see, I put this one in, and you just tighten it down with these. Okay, so I just took this off, and I'm buttoning everything up now. Just finishing up like the cooler piping. I'm kind of coming on the end of this. I'm finally done. Now, I want to say one thing. Would I recommend doing this to your car? Absolutely not. I hate stance, and I would say stance it. Stance the car. Don't go for the power, go for the looks, because it is just annoying. So annoying. I mean, yeah, you could probably get away with a supercharger, because it's a lot easier than a whole turbo kit. But it's still probably hard, because once the car's not supposed to have something, and you put it in, it never goes well, ever. And the thing is, my oil pan's still leaking. So I have to do this completely over again, take everything out and put it back again, and it's just going to be so annoying. So would I recommend doing this? Absolutely not, especially if you don't know what you're doing, kind of like me. So it's currently the next day. I installed everything last night, and all the intercooler piping, and put the radiator support back in, and the hood latch back in. You also have to make sure you get your car tuned. It won't work if you don't get it tuned, but it's kind of common sense, I would hope, I really hope. But this should be making 3 to 320, it really depends on your exhaust setup. So mine's probably making, I would say, 310. But like I said, it's an E-tune, so I can't really tell you the exact numbers it's making. So I'll turn it on and see if it works. If not, then I fucked up. Then I guess we'll know. First time I installed this kit, my car smoked like a chimney, but it's kind of normal. So just don't worry about it. But I mean, just check anyway to make sure that nothing is leaking and shouldn't be smoking. All right, so let's see if I messed up. So mine's not smoking right now because third time I'm reinstalling it. It didn't smoke on the second time either. If you spill some like coolant on it, on the piping or some oil or whatever, it will smoke, but I didn't, so I got lucky. And it's not smoking. And there's only one thing left to do.